بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد ومن يعصيهما فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness and guidance. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, truly guided. And whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala misguides, no one else can guide. And we bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last and final messenger. We bear witness that he delivered the message and he fulfilled the trust. And that he left us with the path and showed us the way. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to join us with him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us firm on his path and to guide us and to guide all the generations after us, inshallah. Dear brothers and sisters, inshallah, in the short time we have together, I want to share with you some thoughts on the concept of worship. A beautiful quote from one of the scholars. And then I want to reflect on the author of the book that I am sharing the thoughts from, Al-Qaradawi, who passed away a few weeks ago. And inshallah, take inspiration and take inspiration from his legacy, inshallah. So I want to share with you a quote, and then let's reflect on it. This is a quote from Sheikh Muhammad Al-Ghazali, one of the great scholars of the past decades. And he says, إن الإسلام ليس أعمال تعد على الأصابع بدون نقص أو زيادة. ولكنه صلاحية الإنسان للمسير في الحياة وهو يؤدي رسالة محددة. He says, rahimahullah, he says, Islam, if you can think of what is Islam, someone's going to ask, what is Islam? He says, Islam is not a list of actions that you can count on your fingertips. Okay? No. Islam is the readiness to journey life according to a purpose. Islam is a readiness to journey life according to purpose. What does that mean? Sometimes if someone asks us, or someone's presenting Islam, they might say, okay, what is Islam? Say, Islam is Salah and Zakah, right? And Hajj. He says, no, that's not. Islam is not those lists of things that you can count on your fingertips. A handful of life. No. Islam is not those actions. Islam is a state of being where I journey life and everything transforms into worship. Everything I encounter in life transforms into worship. So imagine you have a plant, a manufacturing plant. And into this manufacturing plant comes, on a daily basis, comes in raw materials, right? Materials that are raw, have not much value. You have sand comes in, iron ore, you have rubber material comes in, silicon. And in the plant, it's manufactured, and it comes out as an iPhone. Something valuable, something with a lot of capability, purpose. And this is an example of the believer. As a believer gets all these inputs the whole day, these raw material. And these inputs for us is life. Everything that we come across in life. I get married. My mother gets sick. I graduate from school. Right? Allah gives me a new baby. Life. Right? I get a new job. Life happens. And this is the inputs that the believer is seeing every day, and everything is transformed into what? Into worship. Every aspect of life into worship. And brothers and sisters, this is the understanding of the verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the great and famous verse, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, I only created the ins and jinn only to worship me, right? إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. What does إِلَّا mean? Have you ever kind of paused this meaning? What does إِلَّا? What do you mean إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ? Nothing but to worship. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also created us to have families, right? Or did we invent this idea of families? As human beings, did we invent it and come up with this idea of families? Or did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create us that we have to have families? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us that we have to have societies. Right? Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human life that we have to have societies. And we have to have government. Allah created us that we have to earn a living as human beings. And that's why Allah talks about it in the Quran. فَابْتَغُوا مِن فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. Allah created human life that we have to earn a living. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that He only created us to worship. For nothing else but to worship. And indeed, the way that we understand this together is that all those things need to be what? Need to be worship. My going to work needs to be worship. My going to school needs to be worship. My time with my family needs to be worship. Right? And this is understanding Islam. So Islam is not the output. It's not these individual actions. Islam is the state where I want to obey Allah in everything. I want to please Allah in everything. I want to find out how Allah wants me to do, what Allah wants me to do, how Allah wants me to respond, how Allah wants me to behave, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to react in this situation with these people, and I follow it. And that is worship. Right? It's a state of being where everything that happens to me in life, I transform into worship. And when a person embraces this understanding of worship in Islam, it has many blessings in our life. I want to touch on two of them. First blessing is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls in the Quran, Rabbaniyah. That my life becomes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. About the Rabb. It becomes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And everything I do becomes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. SubhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made our faith so that every aspect of life can be worship, so that we can pursue Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every aspect of life. I pursue Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when I'm spending time with my family. And I want to make sure that when I spend time with my family, that I'm doing that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It brings me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I am studying for my MBA, studying for my undergrad, studying for my high school finals, for math, that also is something that is bringing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This Rabbaniyah. And everything becomes I'm doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is becoming more pleased with me in everything I do. Right? And this is the first blessing. The second blessing of this concept and this perspective of Islam is that my life comes together. My life comes together. Everything about my life is now under the same purpose, the same objective. I'm working to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I'm at work, I don't have a different set of rules to get ahead and to get the job and to get to recognition. No, I have the same set of objectives that I have when I'm in the masjid, when I'm in Taraweeh prayer in Ramadan. Same objective. When I get up for Fajr prayer, when I'm sitting with my kids, and it brings life together. Prophet ﷺ says in a beautiful hadith, he says, مَنْ كَانَتِ الْآخِرَةُ هَمُّهُ جَمَعَ اللَّهُ لَهُ شَمْلَهُ وَجَعَلَ غِنَاهُ فِي عَيْنِهِ. And he says, مَنْ كَانَتِ الدُّنْيَا هَمُّهُ فَرَّقَ اللَّهُ شَمْلَهُ وَجَعَلَ فَقْرَهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ. Whoever lives for dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will scatter his life. Scatter. You know that feeling like everything is just, I can't bring things together. I can't, like, my kids are not listening to me, and my work is going awry, and everything's just scattered. I can't. Allah says, whoever pursues dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala scatters it. It makes you feel like you're in need. You don't have what you need. But when akhirah is your concern, you live for akhirah, then Allah brings your life together. Allah brings your life together. Everything becomes feeding into each other. Everything becomes for the same purpose. Right? And there's a blessing in that. So again, we started by sharing this quote from the scholar that Islam is not a list of deeds that I can count on my fingertips and say that's Islam. No, Islam is a state of being. That everything in life, I do it for a purpose that I was created for. Right? أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لكم فاستغفروه إنه الله غفور رحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. I was sharing with you some thoughts from a book of Al-Qaradawi called The Concept of Worship in Islam. And I wanted to also take the opportunity just to reflect on the passing of Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qaradawi passed away maybe 3 weeks ago. And this was a huge loss for all of us, huge loss for the Ummah. Sheikh Al-Qaradawi was 96 years old. I won't talk a little about his life, but he was like, for many of us, we say we have scholars, we have, Imam Sheikh Ali, so and so. He was the scholar of the scholars, the ones they would go to, and would feel reassured that they're on the right path, and as they guide others. He lived a life where by the end of his life, he set the path for so much of our scholars. Here in America, just in my 40 years, and I saw so many of our teachers and scholars here, where they started on a certain path and they came to the methodology of Sheikh Al-Qaradawi. And they said, as I grew up, I saw that the wisdom in his teaching. And that's been guiding kind of the mainstream of Muslims in America. He wrote over 150, maybe 170 books. Some of those books are books that are going to be like the encyclopedias of their subject. His book on fiqh, on zakah, is the encyclopedia on zakah. Moving forward, that's a book, you go read those 3 volumes. And that was his PhD research back when he was a young man. Those of us who did PhDs, we wish our PhD dissertations were something that's so beneficial to others. Sheikh Al-Qaradawi, he said, lived 96 years, was born way back. Like, he lived through the history of the modern history of Muslims. He started his life under colonial occupation in Egypt. Egypt was under the occupation of the British. He lived through world wars. He lived through the occupation of Palestine, the creation of Israel. Lived through the establishment of the dictatorships over the past 40 years or so in our Muslim countries. And lived through the Arab Spring with the highs and lows there. And subhanAllah, he always took a stand on the right side of history. And that's one of the reasons that Sheikh Al-Qaradawi now was the most beloved, easily say, most beloved scholar across the whole Muslim world. Most well-known, most beloved. And it wasn't because of his scholarship per se. It was because of his using his scholarship to stand up for justice. There are a lot of scholars out there, but he stood up for justice. And when you look at all that history, he stood on the right side of history. From his young days as a student in college, in Al-Azhar, when he supported against the occupation, colonial occupation, and he organized there, and he got thrown in jail many times in Egypt, and persecuted, and he went to Qatar, and he would never fear to stand up and say truth. And in that is a big lesson for us, because he earned a lot of enemies along the way. If you notice, when he passed away, a lot of people were happy he passed away. People in the West, scholars of the regimes, many people celebrated. But that can be an honor, a badge of honor in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the Muslims, the Ummah, loved him. The Ummah loved him. And they loved him because of those stands. His loss, it's a big loss for us as Ummah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from him all that he gave. And to bless his legacy. And I want to share with you some personal stories also. So we take some personal inspiration. Sheikh Al-Qaradawi was born in a small village in rural Egypt. His parents were very poor, just farmers, peasants, uneducated. And when he was 2 years old, his father passed away. So he was a little orphan. His uncle took care of him, and then a few years later, his mother passed away. Okay? And subhanAllah, this little orphan without his mother or father, taken care of by his uncle, would grow up and have a big impact on the Ummah. When he started learning Quran, and when he finishes his elementary school, he's in a little village, he's trying to decide what to do now. And his uncle wanted to tell him, work on something here. You can farm with us. You can open a little store. You can start sewing. Everybody here is sewing. And he said, no, I want to study. I want to go to Azhar. I want to become a scholar. I want to study. The uncle said, there's no money there. There are no jobs there. You can go there and come and have no job. But he kept insisting. And he says, one day we were sitting under a tree in the fields. And a man came by, an old sheikh came by. And he sat with us to get a drink of water. We had some water, he drank with us. And he said to us, and so my uncle said to him, he said, we have a little scholar, a little son here is a hafiz. Why don't you test him? So he started testing me Quran. He said, test me from the beginning of Quran, the end of Quran, middle of Quran, and I didn't make a single mistake. He was a little boy, he was probably like 12 years old, 10, 12 years old. And so this man said to him, he said, He said to his uncle, he said, why is this boy here? Why is he not in Azhar studying Islamic knowledge, studying to become a scholar? His uncle said, he'll go to Azhar, it'll take 15, 20 years, and then come back, have no job. So I want to go and learn a skill and start working. And this visiting person said to him, you're a farmer, right? When you plant the seeds, do you know if it's going to grow or not? He said, no, I don't know. We plant it and we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We hope. We put the water and we hope it grows. He said, the same thing. This is a seed. You put it and you let Allah take care of it. It's 15 years away. You don't know what's going to happen in 15 years. And that convinced uncle. And subhanAllah, this young boy would then go and become the great scholar. We never know when you have an impact on someone. The teacher, his Quran teacher as a little boy, used to take Al-Qaradawi and let him study almost for free because he was an orphan, didn't have money. Al-Time said, I didn't have money, but he'll keep on teaching me. And these teachers, they lived off the money they got from the Quran. That was their life. And Shaykh Al-Qaradawi memorized the Quran with him. And even as a 90-year-old man, 80 years later, he tells stories of his Quran teacher, what he taught me in Quran. We never know the impact we will have. But you have to work with others. You have to get involved. You have to serve. You have to help. When you find an opportunity to mentor, you do so. If you find an opportunity to help someone, you do so. And only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the impact that will go. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا واسرافنا في امرنا وثبت اقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم اتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم انصر الاسلام والمسلمين وعلي بفضلك كلمه الحق والدين. اللهم لا تخزنا يوم العرض عليك يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون الا من اتى الله بقلب سليم. واخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. واقم الصلاه.
الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله